Believe it or not, the death of young Sheldon's father, George, isn't Season 6's darkest storyline. Despite being routinely misunderstood by people, young Sheldon always approaches things with hope. Besides being misunderstood by others, is something that people with genius-level IQs often grow accustomed to. So stay tuned and don't go away, because we're bringing you young Sheldon's darkest Season 6 hint reveal, plus young Sheldon could change the Big Bang Theory canon. First up, has young Sheldon's latest scientific venture led audiences towards the show's darkest storyline yet? Let's find out. Sheldon's latest venture, creating a scientific grants database, made him super excited about the prospect of advancing science, but unfortunately, it hit a brick wall in young Sheldon Season 6, Episode 8, titled Legalese and a Whole Hoo-Ha. This latest development teases another dark storyline in addition to George's death that might be faced by young Sheldon in Season 6. The conflicting interest of President Hagemeyer, Dr. Linkletter, and Sheldon's parents effectively destroyed any chances for joy that Sheldon hoped to gain from the project. Young Sheldon Season 6's biggest disaster was Sheldon's loss of innocence and belief in other people's best intentions. The fiasco with the grants database taught Sheldon a very important life lesson. Sometimes people can be very selfish, and they won't hesitate to put their own private interests above what's best for others. Sheldon realizes that his interests weren't really aligned with anybody else's, and the fact that everyone around him only cared about money caused him to lose even more faith in humanity. The Big Bang Theory presented adult Sheldon as an enthusiastic person who loved using schedules to keep his life nice and orderly, not only because of his love of rules, but because he distrusts people, as he knows that their interests rarely align with his own. Next up, can young Sheldon avoid its saddest storylines? Not a chance. From the start, young Sheldon has mostly presented audiences with upbeat storylines about a dysfunctional family that somehow manages to stick together. This makes the darker storylines from the Big Bang Theory hard to delve into, as it would certainly impact the mood of the beloved spin-off series. With that said, young Sheldon cannot forever avoid the darkest events that molded and shaped Sheldon, because it's those very things that made Sheldon into the adult version we see in the Big Bang Theory. So those darker elements of Sheldon's backstory shouldn't be skipped, no matter how much they darken the spin-off. Young Sheldon's scientific grants database and Sheldon's loss of innocence storylines laid the foundation for the prequel, and finally revealed how Sheldon becomes who he is in the Big Bang Theory. The scope of young Sheldon's fun storylines is limited by the story of the Big Bang Theory, but there's no reason the spin-off can't change the story of the existing series. It's true that young Sheldon details the backstory of the Big Bang Theory's main protagonist, but the spin-off series is different in many ways. In terms of style and tone, young Sheldon is a far more dramatic single-camera series, compared to the Big Bang Theory, which was a lighter, multi-camera show with a silly sense of humor. Up next, what does young Sheldon focus on the most? Let's dig a little deeper. At its core, young Sheldon is a series about adolescent nostalgia. Sheldon looks back on his teenage years and the antics of his dysfunctional family. According to the Big Bang Theory storylines, Georgie hates his brother for years to come, and Mary returns to the church as judgmental as ever. We know that Missy never makes it out of Texas, and George Sr. dies at a young age, leaving behind young children. And it's this series of events that tie back to the Big Bang Theory and provides for young Sheldon's darker elements. The Big Bang Theory ensures that young Sheldon is dark, but it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, young Sheldon has already rewritten elements for Sheldon's backstory. Sheldon's narration in Young Sheldon sees him admit that things were different than he had previously remembered. We come to learn that Sheldon was relentlessly bullied and that his father was a terrible alcoholic. As you can see, Sheldon's story from the Big Bang Theory is malleable, and young Sheldon has been toying with Sheldon's story all along. Through Sheldon's narration, viewers discover that Missy wants to stay in her hometown as an adult. Who knows? Georgie could go through a divorce and someday reunite with Mandy, and Missy may find happiness living in her hometown. We might even see Mary come to terms with George Sr.'s death and be less resentful than she appears to be in the Big Bang Theory. Stay tuned and don't go away, because we're revealing everything we know about the Big Bang Theory and young Sheldon. Next up, does the Big Bang Theory prove that Sheldon doesn't give too much thought to other people? Let's take a look. In the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon never mentions Paige, and we get the impression that he doesn't give too much thought to other people. This is true for his siblings, whom he frequently described as mouth breathers, and his late father. It's plausible that Sheldon deliberately chose to misremember things in the Big Bang Theory in order to rewrite his own past for the purpose of narrating his memoirs at a later date. Most viewers assume that the events of young Sheldon are his memoirs, and while we learn that he never saw eye to eye with his family, they ultimately led happy, fulfilling lives. In the Big Bang Theory's finale episode, Sheldon becomes more thoughtful, considerate, and a better friend. If young Sheldon leans into Sheldon's personal growth, it could improve the futures of his family members. One of the best moments of young Sheldon was the time Georgie kissed Veronica during a baptism. Georgie's old flame chooses a Christ-like path, and he makes the decision to do the same so he can continue to spend time time with her. The pair are ultimately baptized together, and fans are blessed with a poignant moment between the two. Veronica's head is dipped in water, but when Georgie comes back up, all he sees is a beautiful girl, like the ones from the hundreds of music videos he's watched. And after confessing his love to Veronica, he plants a kiss on her lips. Veronica's response comes in the form of a punch to the face, and it's one of the funniest moments of the show. Stay tuned and don't go away, because we're revealing the best moments of young Sheldon. Next up, when Missy was struggling with her grammar, do you remember who came to her rescue? We're about to find out. Despite young Sheldon clearly focusing much of its time and energy on its protagonist, fans love it when time is devoted to the other characters in the family, and it's nice to see how they interact with one another. In Season 1, Missy struggles with her grammar assignment, and it isn't Sheldon who comes to the rescue, it's Georgie. Initially, Georgie's hesitant to help, but not wanting Sheldon to be the only smart one in the house, he decides to help. The best moment of this storyline is when Missy slips her assignment under his door, and he sees the 100% mark on the top of the page. Georgie acts as if it's not a big deal, but then he pins the assignment to his corkboard. Clearly, the perfect grade means a lot more to Georgie than he cares to admit. Another memorable moment was the time Missy couldn't join the baseball team. As it turns out, Georgie isn't the only athletic member of the Cooper family, and Missy wants to try out for the team. But when her dad brings her to see Coach Dale, he shoots down any hope she might have had, because she's a girl. Missy returns home, and she's essentially distraught. Meemaw drags Missy away to confront the coach, and Sheldon calls her name. Sheldon gives her a few words of encouragement, and it's clear to viewers that she appreciates it. This moment is significant because it marks a poignant transition from Missy from hopelessness to self-confidence. Up next, what's the story with Dr. Sturgis? Let's have a look. Telling a 10-year-old who happens to be a genius that their mentor suffered a mental breakdown is no easy task. At the end of Season 2, Dr. Sturgis can't make Sheldon's Nobel Prize party, and Sheldon nearly cries as Mary tells him Sturgis isn't feeling well. As you can see, it was very difficult for Mary not to tell Sheldon the whole truth about why Sturgis is sick. One episode later, Mary finally tells Sheldon the truth, and this sets the second half of this touching story in motion. One of the most significant moments of the series is often referred to as missing Sheldon. We all know that brothers and sisters can fight and argue, but nevertheless, there's always this underlying love that exists between them. We saw this when Sheldon spent the night at the hospital. Despite Meemaw assuring Missy that Sheldon will be fine, you can tell she's struggling emotionally. Missy lies there staring at Sheldon's empty bed, and viewers immediately know what she's feeling. When she crawls into Sheldon's bed to be close to him in a figurative way, it's really touching, and I'm sure some viewers had to get a box of tissues. It's clear that the love between Missy and Sheldon is very strong. Finally, what are two of the best young Sheldon moments of all time? There's a moment known as Thunder and Lightning, and it's when George decides to take Sheldon and Georgie to see a space shuttle launch. Unfortunately, however, things don't go as planned. Thunderstorms crackle across the skies and the launch is canceled. George can tell that Sheldon is unhappy, and so he asks Sheldon questions about lightning and thunder in an effort to take his mind off the fact that their special day was essentially ruined. George may not possess Sheldon's love and understanding of science, but he understands what makes Sheldon happy. Sheldon tells us via narration that this was his favorite trip, and it's easy to see why. This is arguably Sheldon's single greatest moment with his father, and it's one that Sheldon holds on to forever in his memory bank. Moving on now to the #1 best moment of all time, referred to as the Nobel Prize, from the episode titled A Swedish Science Thing and the Equation for Toast. Sheldon sits in the garage listening for the winners of the Nobel Prize, and considering the time period in which the prequel series takes place, there haven't been a lot of opportunities for the show's original cast to appear on camera. Some have done narration, and Kaylee Cuoco did the voice of the pool in one of Sheldon's dreams. But when we see a montage of all the other Big Bang Theory characters, we know that Sheldon will never really be alone. This episode and the original series finale aired on the same night, which was an absolutely perfect way to connect the two shows. That's a wrap for today's video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.